Oh, yeah.
Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to the bench. So this week we're going to talk about shooting left-handed, being left-handed while shooting, and all the other fun stuff and things that we can talk about. Now, I'm only going to speak on what I have used, what I do use, and what I will probably continue to use. There are a couple different aspects to this. And first of all, I'd like to thank our channel sponsor, Brownells. They are a huge, awesome company. They help us out all the time. So go hit them up. Use code BOP10 or Triggered to help them out on anything that you get over there. And then, if you guys also want, you can pick up almost everything you're going to see here over there at Brownells. There are a couple things that you can probably pick up elsewhere. It's totally not a problem. But let's just kind of dig right into this. So first, I'm going to kind of go into my more Gucci parts. We'll talk about some of the cheaper parts here in just a little bit, and then we'll go from there. One of the better known brands, they're still pretty big, but they're not like the biggest brand out there. Forward Control Designs makes some really good stuff. Now, if you guys have seen in the background or you see any of the shooting footage in any of my previous videos, I continuously use a lot of Forward Control Designs products. First of all, I think these Ambi mag releases are some of the best. I'll give you an alternative later, and then I'll give you some alternatives that I didn't necessarily find worked for me, but can definitely probably work for you, especially if you don't shoot as much as I do. But I highly recommend, if you are going to just have one gun and you're going to put Ambi parts on it, I highly recommend Forward Control Designs. They make really good stuff, and I have not had an issue with them. So this is the extended magazine release. I'll type in the names below. But I think it's called the EMR, Extended Magazine Release, and then actually has a longer extension. So they make these where some of them are a little bit shorter, and this one has the longer extension, and this is the dimpled version. I have a serrated version somewhere on one of my lowers, but this is the dimpled version. I like the dimpled version personally for aesthetics. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to get the dimpled version. One of the weird things about the dimpled stuff is that Forward Control Designs is one of the few in the industry that does dimpled stuff. In fact, they're the only ones that I know of off the top of my head. But if you are going to run the dimpled stuff, apparently from what Forward Control Designs did say on the Big Tex Ordnance podcast, is that it's easy for you to grip from all angles. Whereas the serrated stuff is usually serrated going this way, as you can see it. It's usually serrated that way, and it's meant for you to have grip just going up and down, whereas this will give you grip in every direction. And it really does give you a little bit of grippiness. One of the things I can say is these are expensive. You're looking about $75 for a magazine release. You're looking about $55 for a bolt release, bolt hold open. They also make these specific for the LMT that we'll talk about later, but they make these specific for LMT, and then you can put these on anything. So if you have an LMT Defender lower, you can use the normal one, but if you have the Mars L lowers, you can use the ones that you can buy for the LMT Mars version. They're really good. I highly recommend this one, but I will state right off the bat, we're going to go into the cheaper one real quick. This is actually a better version. Now, I say this is that it works with the EMRA, and it does everything better, but it's actually easier for me to drop the bolt with this, with my left finger, my index finger, than it is for me to drop the bolt with this. And I don't necessarily understand why. This one is very good. It's $12. It's not very expensive. I think it's Seekins Precision, I believe, who makes this one. Very nice. I don't necessarily love the way it looks. It does have like this corrugated look to it, but it works out really well. Super easy to install, and I highly recommend it. But getting back to this, I like these because they have the larger latch at the bottom, whereas if you're looking at the Seekins one, the latch isn't necessarily larger, but it is longer, so it does stick out a little bit more. That is to help you be able to push on this side and have no issues with. If you're truly left-handed, one of the things that I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand is that you can put a lot of force here. I don't recommend bad levers personally. I have seen a few people negligently discharge. It was an accident, but you do still call it a negligent discharge. I've seen people do that frequently with bad levers. Now, my friend Mike broke his lower receiver right there where the retaining pin goes in for this. He actually broke his lower receiver right along there where he had his bad lever attached, because you are putting an excessive amount of force on it, and it will break your lower receiver if you don't have a good one. Now that was a IWI lower receiver that he had for his 12.5, and it did end up breaking. I haven't seen that very many on a lot of other people's stuff, but I have noticed that it will happen. That's another reason why. But also, if you're shooting left-handed, you're using a bad lever. You normally can't run a lot of ambi mag releases. Really, the only one I know that you can run with a bad lever, the Troy ambi mag release. This is the only one I know that you can run with a bad lever, because the bad lever runs through here and then the Troy mag release is right here. Now I have heard people state that they much prefer this setup. Totally understandable. I'm not that way. I personally think that you can just kind of drop the bolt over here with your index finger. I have no problem doing it, but then again, I have strong hands. I do work with my hands a lot, so that's usually an indicator. Like if you have weaker hands, I can see you having issues doing things like that. One of the things I will say is sometimes you can just find really good parts and they're not super expensive. That is a good thing. It's not always the case. Bear Creek Arsenal, Palmetto State Armory. You can find good things at discounted or relatively cheaper prices, but you're not always gonna get what you want at the price point that you're asking for. I personally love these magazine releases. They put your hand right at the perfect point. I use the B5 P23 grip, which when you're shooting, you're here, but then you're able to easily release it here and then easily reach up here. Now I'm not reaching a whole lot, but this is usually how my hand is set up for when I'm shooting, and then I am able to reach up there and push that. Now I will state, Geissele makes an interesting thing, but it does not work with that magazine release. It's the only magazine release I like, and that is relatively decent to be able to use, is the Troy. And this is what I was talking about with those serrations. They give you that up and down traction, but they don't give you the left and right traction. So you'll notice that. But the Geissele magazine release has a really deep corrugations on it. Now this is called the Maritime Bolt Catch. I don't necessarily know why he went with the Maritime Bolt Catch, why he decided to name it that, but it gives you a really big surface area. Now when using this, I hope I still have some of these videos, by the way. When using this, you're able to lock the bolt open from down here, and you don't necessarily have to reach up with your hand, and then going up to here, you're able to push here. Now I have broken one of these before. I've broken one of these, and I don't necessarily know how I did it, but when I went to go push on it, and I wish I had the video, I went to go push on it, and the thing just broke on me. So that was one of the things. These are relatively cheap. They're around 25 bucks. You can usually find them on sale for 20 on like Black Friday or even just Memorial Day had them. I think they were $21. They're not terrible at all, and I do highly recommend this. Like I really do. I like this. If you're going to run this setup and you want that, I've never had where I've set down the gun and anything pushed down on the Troy magazine release in order to push it. But what I do tell you is that if you're just going to run a normal magazine spring in here, you should be replacing that spring every 5,000 rounds, because it will wear out and you will eventually get mags that do drop out of here. I have run the Strike Industries Ambi mag release. That one is garbage, probably 400 rounds into it, and I could not retain a magazine. It would literally just fall right out of the bottom. There was nothing I could do about that. KE Arms makes one. It's relatively decent. I don't know how long it lasts because I don't necessarily love the feel of it. And that is based off of like the Nemo Arms one, where that one's like 95 bucks. A lot of people say that you should get that one. I've never run it. I've never thought of spending $95 on a magazine release, and then I go ahead and I spend 75. I will state that some of this stuff being left-handed does kind of suck. You are kind of price gouged out a lot of things, and that is one of the worst things that can happen in this industry. But I will tell you right now, good middle of the road, not super expensive, usually around 45 or 50 bucks, you're getting this Troy. Now you will, if you have a non-polymer lower, you'll mar up your lower receiver. You will take some of that anodizing finish off of there. Other than that, I've never had this dig into the point where it has damaged or messed up my lower. And then I did run this on a standard KE Arms lower receiver for a very long time a while back. I never had a problem with it there either. But I have had to replace the spring a couple of times. I realized in these KE Arms KP15 lowers, I have actually not had to replace that spring. I don't know how the magwell is made or if it's any different, but I've not had that issue. And I really, really like how this whole setup is. I'm going to get into some honorable mentions here real quick. Let me find them right now. All right, so getting into this real quick, this is called the Knight's Armament. Ambi magazine release. Now this came with a trigger, like a winter type deal. I don't like necessarily running this. I highly recommend if you have short hands, this will definitely work with your lower receiver. It will bring it a lot farther back. As you can tell right there, you will bring your paddle a lot farther back on the receiver, but this part right here will rub up against your lower receiver and will cause wear points. Just so you're aware, I think you can actually see that right in here. You see that wear point right there? That is from the Knights receiver, or from the Knights magazine release. I personally don't mind it. It doesn't bother me, but I know it will bother other people. Just in case you're wondering, the Knights ambidextrous magazine release will cause wear on your lower receiver, but so will all of these. These will all kind of give you a little bit of wear. As you can tell right in here, you will get a little bit of wear where that kind of stacks up right in there. You're not going to get away from that. The only way you can really do that is if you go with these. This is called an Arms Unlimited magazine release, Ambi magazine release. It's okay. I highly recommend if you get one of these, buy like 10. So you might as well just go with the Nemo arms right off the bat. Some of the springs are really tight when you first get them, and then probably about 30 or so magazine changes later, they're super easy to manipulate, and they end up losing their ability to retain a magazine. So I don't recommend these. I've kept this around as a thing to tell people what not to get, and this is the Arms Unlimited. Now, I also have a K-Arms one, which is kind of similar. I don't know what this goo is on here. It's always been on there, and it's always been a problem. This thing has given me issues sometimes, and I'm not going to say that K-Arms has knocked it out 100% of the time, but as you can see, it kind of gets stuck in that position. This is also not a good one. I do not recommend buying one of these. I like a lot of K-Arms products, but this one is not one I would recommend you buy. It just doesn't look right. They have a lot of tooling marks left on here, and as you can tell, the $23 versus the $30 one, just to me it doesn't make sense. You're getting American manufacturing here, which I don't know where this one's coming from, but I don't recommend these whatsoever. All right, so there is a ton of out there selector switches. There's about 1 million of them. On all of my rifles except my KP15, you will see these. These are the forward control designs, ambidextrous, safety. I don't know what, I think they call it the ASF. I'll have to, again, put that down below. I don't know what they call it, but this is the 50 degree. I prefer the 50 degree. I like short throw safety levers. That's just my preference. Some people will prefer the 90 degree. Again, these are not cheap. But I highly recommend them. I have these on 4 different rifles, coming up on 5 different rifles now. I have no issue with these. They're amazing. They use a pin that goes in here to where they don't break, they don't shear, they don't have a problem. There's so much good stuff to say about these. You can buy these with different levers. They all have levers that go in specific spots. I'm sorry, the camera is just a little too high. So they all have these levers. You can have them go up. You can buy the Sons of Liberty Gunworks Quick, which is the same exact one as the forward control designs. I believe it's called the ASF. I could be wrong. And they're really good. I like the 50 degree version. It's a little bit over 45. I know some people don't like 50 degrees. Like they're like, no, it has to be 45. To me, you really can't tell the difference in those 5 degrees. Or they have to have the 90 degree one. That's a-okay. If you're left-handed and you like to rock the 90 degree, I completely understand. Schmidt Tool makes one. Now this is a full auto one, but it doesn't really matter. You can own these. It's not a problem for you to own a full auto selector. You can have them for your nostalgia purposes. It's when you drill the 3rd hole, as apparently when your whole life gets ruined by those people who love to shoot dogs. So what I would tell you is you can totally have one of these. I really like it. I had this on my M4 for a while. It's a good selector. They also just make a standard Ambi one. You can totally pick these up. These are not bad at all. They run on these. I don't necessarily love the Allen key style ones. I prefer, if you're going to do it, to have a Torx bit, because the Allen keys will strip, especially if you put too much red Loctite or anything on there. Use blue Loctite when you do this stuff. Use blue or purple Loctite. I highly recommend even more purple Loctite. Runner up for probably like my No, this one's not even close. For my next favorite, I like the Battle Arms Development ones. As you can tell, these are all set up for 45 degree for left-handed because that's how I use them. That's what I like. And these are very good. I highly recommend if you're going to pick up one and you don't want to spend a ton of money, you can buy 2 of these for the price of one of those Forward Control Designs ones. But I highly recommend you pick these up. I like them. They come in different colors. You can get them in whatever you want. They have the cast version here, which you can tell is kind of more dulled. They have the aluminum version here, which is more anodized. They also have another aluminum that you can get in green. They have some hideous green. I did break one of these. These weren't heat treated properly, so they did send out another one, which is another thing. When you buy some of these, if you buy any of the older versions or you buy them used, they did have some defects with this stuff. And Battle Arms Development, the thing I have a problem with is if you were to buy these used, they would not let you return them or even put them in for service, specifically because you have to show your original purchase receipt. I purchased one of these when I was at the NRA show and I didn't have it, and they gave me a hell of a time. Not that they're a bad company, but you have to have your original purchase receipt if you have anything break on these. So I did have one of these break when I was actually shooting. I believe I still have the video. If not, I think I had it on Instagram. This, honestly, I was just surprised that it broke the way it did. And it wasn't even on my dominant firing hand because the large lever didn't break. It was the small lever that broke. But I did contact them. They did fix it. There was no problem. Now, this one is specifically from POF. POF did make this one. I have 2 of these, but one I broke. On this side, it just broke. It got hung up on something and it broke. You will notice that it's not anything incredible. It does have this in here. I actually had one of these in, and I didn't use red Loctite. I used blue Loctite, and I had one of these in on my other one that did break, and I couldn't get it out. So I had to literally Dremel off the face and use this and only have one. So that's why I don't recommend you buy any of these with the Allen keys. I just wish more companies would make these with the Torx key, because I feel like it's really stupid to have one of these with that. And then I have another one that came on my lower receiver from LMT. It's the exact same thing, has the exact same hole. I mean, I believe LMT just buys them by the millions from whatever company makes them, whatever company makes them, but they're not terrible. They are a 90-degree throw, and you can do that as you wish. Those are just some of the ones that I have that I really, really like, that are a little bit cheaper than the Forward Controls designed one that I know a lot of people are going to complain about the price. But once you buy one, you're going to want to buy them for every one of your guns. And yeah, just set aside the money. If you have more than one gun, I highly recommend you buy these. I really do. They are probably one of the best ambi selectors on the market. And there's nothing I can really say wrong with that. I'll even tell you, I put one on my LMT. And I'll show you that right now. All right, so LMT, I believe, does make a very high quality product. I've been running this LMT for a while now, and we'll go into how this is so left-hand friendly. It's not even funny, but I do highly recommend, if you are going to be a lefty in the game, might as well just start off with a straight up, oh, look at all that grass from when I threw this thing on the ground the other day. Oh, and it still works. But if you're going to be a lefty in the game, I highly recommend you just spend some dough on an ambi low receiver. The reason why I tell you that is because it has your magazine release built in. You don't have to buy all these small parts and worry about all that. This is literally just built in, runs on the factory, and it just has this little extra paddle. All your standard stuff that works. And then you have your paddles on the opposite side as well. So you can drop the bolt from right over here. You can do all that sort of fun stuff. And then this one does specifically come with an ambi safety, but I specifically went to the Forward Control Designs ASF 90, or I'm sorry, ASF 50, because that's what I like. I really do. A lot of people will be upset that the fire isn't in the right spot there. I completely get it. You know, it's up to you. But I do much prefer, if you're going to run one of these, to run, you know, it doesn't matter if the fire doesn't line up. I just much prefer to run this safety over every other safety out there. And that's what I'll say forever and ever and ever, because this is probably one of the best safeties. And if you're going to spend the money to get into this hobby, why not spend the money to get into this hobby and have the stuff that runs correctly for you? As I said, I give you cheaper alternatives, but if I had my druthers, I would have these on every single gun I have for the rest of my life. Every gun from the factory would come with a safety, just because I think it's the best. And I'm not, Forward Controls Designs didn't pay me to say a dime of this. I'm literally just telling you guys, I think these are some of the best safeties on the planet. And I think we spend a little bit too much time on that. Anyway, getting into the ambi features of the lower receiver. I mean, I absolutely love this. Now, there are a couple. Sons of Liberty Gunworks, Radian, which is still $100 more than one of these. The ADAC lowers from American Defense Manufacturing, I think those are also about $50 to $100 more than this. You can pick this lower up for about $300 anywhere, usually. Apparently right now LMT has been putting out more of these lowers, and they are coming out more often. Do not understand that I beat the crap out of my guns and I'm not nice and easy on them like everybody wants me to be. I will never do that. Guns are tools. Use them, and if need be, abuse them if that's how you need to get your job done. But other than that, I highly recommend this. This thing has taken a beating. It continues to take a beating. It doesn't fall apart. It doesn't break, and it does what it's supposed to do. Lower receiver is going to be where all of your stuff comes into play for a left-handed person. And really, I love the giant beveled magwell for your magazine changes and all the other fun stuff on here. It's just one of the better parts of having a fully integrated ambi lower receiver that has a magazine release and has one of these. Cross Machine made a lower receiver for a while that did have an ambi magazine release built into it, but it stuck out so much that if you laid the lower on the side, it would honestly, you would pop your magazine out because that little paddle stuck up so much. When I contacted them about it, they said it was supposed to stick up that much, and well, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think it's supposed to stick up that much. I didn't necessarily like it, so I went ahead and I got rid of that lower receiver, sold it to somebody who wanted it, and I went and bought the LMT because I just believe that the LMT is one of the better ones. Now I will say, my buddy has a dealer account. I was able to get this at a significantly reduced price. But that was not through LMT or Brownells or anything like that. My buddy Mike has a dealer account, and he was able to help me acquire this. So huge thank you to him. He is an awesome friend for me. If you have friends with dealer accounts and they are able to help you, by all means, do that. And then, push some business their way if you can, because, that's how they maintain that dealer account. Other than that, I don't have much more for ambi controls. What I will tell you is shooting left-handed and shooting with your upper receivers. I don't own any of the ambi uppers. I know there's going to be a lot of people asking questions about what that means. Stag Arms makes left-handed uppers, as you'll see on all my guns. If Stag Arms ever wants to reach out and work with me, by all means, I will definitely do that. I would love to try one of their left-handed guns and probably convert me to that. But I have not at all felt the need for one. Now, shooting suppressed, I will say, shooting suppressed and being left-handed, you're going to eat a lot of gas to the face. There's no getting around that unless you have a gun that's just perfectly tuned to send all the gas out of it. Maybe that new upper receiver from Gemtech. It's something to do with piston blow-by. Like, it has like a gas block, but it also has like an overpressure piston in it and all that fun stuff. You can totally get away with some of those things, and I highly recommend you go look at that. But these are my controls that I highly recommend to anybody who's a lefty and you're out there and you're looking. The Geissele, the Seekins, and Forward Controls and LMT lowers, I think are all the good stuff. I mean, if that's what you're into and you really want to get into the sport and you really want to have better, easier mag changes and be able to just kind of do everything ambi, I highly recommend you look at some of those things. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning into everything. I hope you guys like and subscribe. Go check out the channel. Please, if you guys want to support the channel, there is a super thanks down below. You guys can do that. And then go check out my Utreon, and you guys can hit me up on Instagram or do anything like that. But I highly wish you guys at least like and subscribe and push this out to your lefty friends. If they're out there and you're left-handed, I highly recommend it. These are my products as someone who is solely left-handed. I don't shoot right-handed very often, but yes, I highly recommend these. I hope you guys have a good one. As always, be a hoodlum.
So it's a double.
All right, Surefire RC2 on the Geissele UR GI 14.5.